I recently had the opportunity to connect via Zoom with author Kori Hahn to talk about her book, Rituals of the Soul, using the 8 ancient principles of yoga to create a modern and meaningful life. I hope that you'll enjoy our conversation.
Rituals of the Soul is about using the 8 ancient principles of yoga to tap into your intuition so you can use these ancient principles to learn how to integrate them into your everyday life. And from your intuition, you realize your dreams. And from your dreams, you realize what your soul put you here on this earth to do. And the book is the guidelines to do that.
I'm curious about the connection between yoga and intuition, because that's not something that I've necessarily thought of before. So can you tell us about the connection between intuition and yoga?
Yeah, I hadn't made that connection either between intuition and yoga. And that's when the real aha moment, I'd say for me, happened, is when I realized that there is actually a sutra in the ancient sutras that says, all powers of yoga will lead you to greater intuition, something along that lines, I paraphrased. And then I looked at the entire 200 aphorisms and saw that they're all guiding us to do that, that yoga was merely a process to be intuitive. And somehow I missed that whole step. But if you read the book, then you'll see how important it is and how every step really is infused with that to guide us to that intuition, what our soul wants, the whispers of our innate desires.
In the book, you say that you're an incredibly dedicated yogi, but you rarely step foot on the mat these days. You know, in the past, you did quite a bit. So how is that possible? Like I love that idea, and I always just think of yoga as, go to a yoga class.
Yeah, don't so many of us. And I did a lot of time on the mat and I still had my same problems. I still had a lot of anxiety. I still had a lot of depression. I still was struggling with codependency. And it was when I took the practices off the mat and into my real life, like, what am I dealing with today and how can I help myself, that I realized there's so much more to gain from this entire 8 steps your spiritual process than just moving my body or getting in touch with my body. It was really about using my life and getting in touch with my life with yoga. And meditation mainly has been the greatest thing for me, much more than anything I ever learned on the mat.
Say that creating space is the first step for becoming more intuitive. Will you give us an example of how we can do that?
Yeah, sure. I like to think of it in 3 ways. Like, how can you create space first in your body? So use postures. That's what that asana actually translates to, the 3rd step. And you can use your physical body. Like if I'm doing an interview like this many hours a day, soon you'll see my shoulders start coming in and my, too much time on the computer, you just start becoming this like arm forward zombie. And so even if you just become mindful and start noticing that, you can create space in your body by standing up once an hour for 10 minutes and reversing that and doing some back bends. Look at your schedule. Literally, you can write down what your schedule's looking like every single day and say, I need more space. Where am I going to create this? And start by taking off the things that give you the least amount of joy. If that's dishes, maybe your husband or your friend, or you can hire a maid if you're single, whatever you need to do to start integrating all that. And, schedule, body. And then, of course, a big one is the mind. And really just by taking that time to make a meditation practice, whether it's 10 breaths a few times a day, or it's an actual sit down 1 hour practice, whatever that looks like, but make that happen. And sometimes it feels like letting go. It feels like grief because it's hard to create space. It's hard to change those patterns, but it's definitely the space where everything else is going to develop into. So it's a very key first step.
Your book empowers readers to create their own personalized set of rituals. What do you mean by rituals and why is it important?
Rituals are a practice that we give real significance to. So more than just something like you're doing on a yoga mat every day for 1 hour. A ritual is something you're going to do as many times as you possibly can. And it's a way to create new habit patterns, especially in your mind, but in everything, like in all of your body, there's, habits that are taking place that you don't even know, many are unconscious. So the idea of creating rituals around all these skills and then the the chunks of there's two chunks of the book, pretty much, the intuition rituals and the manifestation rituals. You are changing your life essentially without the overwhelm, without the erroneous to-do list. And you realize that you can do really big things without all the stress, all the overwhelm, and with little baby steps. And it's kind of the key to making your life into what do you want it to be, really. So they're very important.
And what do you think the most important thing that someone who wants to start doing some rituals needs to know?
To be dedicated, but not let it boggle you down, like not let it overwhelm you. Because I think for years, my yoga practice became this erroneous to-do list. And that's why I like to say that. Like I shamed myself more than I was opening myself to the benefits, of making sure I went to that mat. And when I had a baby, I realized like that was just adding to my stress. It wasn't helping my life at all. And so I started making my breathing practice, my meditation, 10 breaths here and there whenever I could. And next thing you know, I was actually meditating 10, 20, 30 times a day, even if it was just for 10 breaths. And by that, I started meditating almost all the time, essentially, in some way. It just became a pattern to check in with my breath, to take a few breaths here and there, to react less. And so it really does help you to change the way you're actually behaving.
What is the most important thing that you hope readers will take away from your book?
I hope that they gain a spiritual confidence like I got, because there's been some really dark days in life. And it's normal to be angry, to be sad, to have depression, to have anxiety. This is, we were born in this human body and it's ripe with these things. But for me to understanding how normal that is, and that there's all these tools that the yogis offered us, and this was normal 3,000 years ago. When they wrote this book, this isn't anything new that just came out, with petrol. This has been around for a long time. Anxiety's been around since tigers were chasing people through villages. And that it's okay that there's struggle and that there's these skills. And that for me, seeing yoga as an 8-step, as a ladder to climb out of this black hole, and it gave me something to hold on to. Even if I was just clinging to the ladder at times, it did give me something to hold on to. And recently, a friend called me and told me about her daughter really struggling, 18 years old. And I was thinking how lucky I am to be alive for all those years that I didn't have that spiritual confidence. And so I hope if someone needs that, they need a ladder, one of the rungs on the ladder to hold on to, that this book can be that for them, and it can offer them some sort of insight for how to get out of that place, and maybe a different perspective on how to see our humanness and more importantly, the soul.